Welcome back to Nourished Inside Out, the space where growth gets real and self love leads the way. I'm your host, Annetta Walclaw, and before we dive into today's episode, I want to remind you of something powerful. You are worthy, you are enough, and you don't need to wait for permission to love yourself fully. That's exactly why I wrote my book, Blooming with Self Love, to give you the tools, affirmations, and daily mindset shifts to help you stand in your power and own your story. This book isn't just words on a page, it's a movement. So if you're ready to stop shrinking and start showing up for yourself, grab your copy today with the link in the show notes below, and let's walk this self love journey together.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Nourished Inside Out. Today I'm here with Christian Sismone, and she's a project manager, a blogger, and a feminine energy creator. Thank you so much for joining us today, Christian.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's an honor to have you here today. Your background is really interesting and really unique because you're a project manager, a blogger, but what really stood out to me was that you're a feminine energy creator. Can you walk us through what that means for you and what that kind of career path looks like for you?
Yes. Um, in my life, it has been the easiest thing to be hyper into rules, regulations, and boxes. And over time, I noticed that I had different skills, different talents, different hunches that would come to me, but I couldn't ever really tap into it. And I tried to model myself in the way that everybody else seemed to model. And eventually it hit hard because I hit burnout and I hit just not being able to be the most authentic self. And that pushed me into a decade of unraveling and recreating myself and essentially owning the parts of me that I was too scared and based off society's view and value system, what was seen as important. I began to really focus on the things that made me unique, which is my intuition. I take my skills as a project manager and that I use as creating a structure for whatever thing that I want to create and then take that structure and then use my feminine energy to actually beautify wherever it is that I'm working on. So if it's blogging, if it's endeavoring into podcasting, if it's just creating beauty content when I first started out, that is how I merged the two to get to where I am today.
Think that's beautiful. You really talk about stepping into your feminine energy, which is also kind of like soft girl energy, or be having that soft energy instead of always being so masculine on the outside. What was it like for you growing up? Did you always feel like you had to be the bigger person when it came to growing up in a lot of situations?
Yes. So being in my culture, there was a certain expectation that I had to be almost like a guy. I looked at it as I had to be a faux man. I had to be hard, no feelings. There was no crying. It just needed to be work, 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 and always needing to provide and take care of everybody else, which meant never taking care of myself. Anytime I would try to do things that were for me only, I would get punished for it. And so you grow up in that sort of environment and then you become an adult. And those habits are hard to kick because you are getting into jobs. And unfortunately, it's one of those behaviors that is highly rewarded in corporate America is for you to be basically selfless. And that for some people, they're able to move up the ranks and they get bigger titles, bigger salaries. And for others, it can just be that it helps you just keep a job. And over the time of the years, I really noticed how I felt dry. I felt very dehydrated. And eventually it just kind of clicked that the feminine is where you get your juiciness from, where you get your creativity, your ability to play. And I noticed as I started getting up in my years, I wanted to be playful. I wanted to be light, but that was not behavior that was acceptable. Those were things that were shunned. And those are the areas that I felt this where I got most of my ideas from. And so moving from being in a hyper masculine state where I look at it as a veneer, and a veneer is something that's loosely covering something that is withering underneath. And I did not want to have that veneer of strength anymore. I really wanted to embody what it meant to be truly dynamic, because the feminine is extremely powerful, but it's scary for most people, which is why everyone likes to kind of mask around in the masculine.
Yeah, that's so true. I think thank you for sharing that. It's a really great piece, but also vulnerable information because I think a lot of times when we're growing up, we do have to grow up faster than what we actually are by age. And we don't really realize that we are having to be the man and have to pull ourselves up and to have those masculine traits, especially as a female. So I completely hear you on that, especially if you grow up with brothers or if you're the oldest, then you get placed a lot more responsibilities on yourself. Are you the oldest or do you have brothers?
I am the eldest and my brother is the baby. So it's definitely have I definitely have had to be that oldest child. If you've been the oldest child, you probably deserve compensation because you were almost like a second level parent to your younger siblings.
Yeah, absolutely. At what point in your life did you realize that you needed to stop and pause and really reevaluate things and understand that you, that is not your role. Like you do have a soft and feminine side and you need to embrace it. At what point in your life did you understand that?
I would say probably in my mid 30s, I began noticing how dry I felt. And I was making beauty content at the time. And I noticed that I felt like I should be much further along in my pursuits. I was talking with other content creators and I wondered like what was the difference between me and them? They're getting big brand partnerships and all these really fun things. And what it eventually, I was talking with the creator and she made a comment, not necessarily towards me, but I had to sit with it. But essentially, she's like, it seems as though you strip away the parts of you that are super unique. And I had like that, it was almost like someone hit me in my chest because it's like, okay, wait, there's some truth to this because I really, over the years, I felt like I had to strip all of the colorfulness, the vibrancy, because I just noticed how the reactions I would get. And unfortunately, we live in a society that really does not like women. It's just unfortunate part of being in the society where women are not seen as the desired trait. And so trying to just navigate the world, I hid all of the areas that made me very much the unique person. And so after a while of really spending time with myself, I also began to endeavor in different behaviors that I was experiencing or having to like, there was a way that I could be, and there was a way that I could no longer be anymore. And so once those things started interacting, it's like, okay, the things that you want to do, the things that you are excited about the most are the things that you hide the most. And the things that you suppress oftentimes are really the indicators of who you are the most authentically.
Yeah, that's so true. I'm so happy you brought that up because that's such a valid point. It's the things that we suppress are actually like our gifts and our talents, or the things that we don't like about ourselves when we're younger. Those are actually our strengths. And that's something that I didn't realize until recently. So it's like at such a young age, we're unfamiliar with what is like we're not super familiar. Like we're still learning about life of like what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. And we are so much more pliable to the world of listening to the opinions of others that if someone says, oh, that color doesn't look good on you, you're gonna grow up thinking that color doesn't look good on you. And it's a lie because the reality is it's probably a really good color on you. It's just somebody doesn't want to believe that. So it's such a valuable point.
Yes, I think it's sometimes it can be really scary to be who you are. So if you grow up where you're not able to, like, it's scary, you could be punished for being who you are truly. It makes it to where you go into hiding. And I always look at what you suppress becomes exhausting. If you have to put on, like, and I have not personally done it, but I have seen and watched people who do go to like these comic book cosplay events. There's a lot of work that goes into putting on a costume. Well, think about if that is your everyday life. How exhausting is it before you can go out into the world? You have to go put on your costume. That over time, over years, decades, takes a toll and it just becomes exhausting. And a lot of people, it becomes also scary because and accept yourself, which is always the first step in being able to really live in your true light and basically how you can live in the most soft life way is to truly accept who you are. But that can be scary as well because then it's where, well, am I truly that type of person? Do I really enjoy these things? I thought I could only enjoy this particular life, and it becomes unnerving. And for a lot of, especially a lot of women, they then go into hiding or try to double down on the way that they've been. But as women grow and progress, especially if you get into your 30s, your 40s, you go into what is called perimenopause and you are going to be essentially forced. It's an invitation, but it's a forced invitation for you to reconcile with who you are as a woman in completion, like totality, but also it is a illusion destroyer. So what you thought you were, who you felt that you had to be, that gets destroyed and you are now left with the gift to now show up in the world as you really are.
Wow, that's such a great example of the cosplay like conventions because I haven't been to one either, but if you look at people who do go to them, it's a really is a lot of work. And I've also been around people who talk about like making the costumes for that and how much work and effort that they really put into it, which is great. But do you want to be that person that's putting on a costume every single day? And wow, that's a really great example. Have you ever gone through the people pleasing aspect of growing up and when you were trying to step into your femininity, but you were still having that masculinity? Have you ever dealt with the people pleasing?
Most definitely. I think as a woman, we are nurtured into always wanting to make everyone else happy. And I remember talking to a male colleague some years ago, and I really sometimes like I always think people aren't listening to me. And that day he showed me that no, I've been listening to you all the time. And I just made a statement. I'm like, I'm always uncomfortable. So if I do say what I feel, and someone's uncomfortable, you're uncomfortable for 5 minutes. I'm always uncomfortable because I'm always having to try to make sure my existence doesn't upset. And that stuck to him, but it reminded me, it's like, nope, you you people pleasing is actually extremely toxic. And it's not just toxic for you, but also for the person that you're trying to, or group of people that you're trying to please, because it just continues to put a very loose veneer over the reality of what is. And then it just keeps you stuck longer and causes so much harm to both you and the other person.
Yeah, that's so true. I think we've all been on some point in our journey on a people pleasing thing. And I've definitely been there, whether it was career, personal relationships, family members, friends. I've tried to people please in all of those areas, and it doesn't get you anywhere. It gets you feeling burnt out, you feel lost. And then when you start to put boundaries, like for me personally, whenever I would be people pleasing and then I would try to put boundaries, I would always get the response, wow, you're so mean. Wow, why can't you be nice like you used to be? And it's like, I can't let you continue walking all over me. And that's can be a hard place to be. But something that I've also learned is that boundaries are not meant to hurt other people. They're meant to protect your peace.
Boundaries are, to me, boundaries are a gift. And
Mhm.
people will sometimes get uncomfortable because they want you to go back to the way you were, because the way you were served their whatever needs that they had. And so they're most incentivized for you to go back to being the same way. But to me, boundaries are a gift. It lets the person know, hey, I want you in my life. And the way I want you to be in my life is that I want you to be in my life in a safe way. I look at boundaries like a baby in a bassinet, or one of their little the little things that they go and lay down in. It is the safety net. It helps them to know, here's the confines that you can go explore safely. And so then the baby can relax and say, okay, I know these are the little areas that I can be in and I'm safe. And that's the way I look at boundaries. And I think anytime that we are scared to enforce those boundaries, it's because we're scared of what is like what could happen. And putting those boundaries in, it gives you a space of self-respect and self-protection as well.
Absolutely. I love that you elaborated on that because it really is just a safety net. When you were starting to face burnout from always having to be masculine on the outside, what are some things that you started to do to start breaking free from that and create new patterns and new habits for yourself?
I began doing, I'm very routine. So part of my
Okay.
process of moving away from being hyper masculine was accepting that I like pretty things. I like frilly things. But I'm also very, very regimented. I used to always get accused of being ex-military because I can be very, very routine. I began doing things on a daily basis, or incorporating things on a daily basis. So I went and got beautiful coffee mugs, and I have beautiful silk robes. And my routine in the morning is I get up, I do my skincare. I also put a lot of money into the skincare I use, because it's just the having a nice glass bottle or jar. So I do my skincare in the morning very slowly, very relaxed. In the wintertime, I'll put candles on even in the morning. While I do that, I do my coffee with my nice glass mugs with a light little Ghirardelli square, and enjoy my coffee while I do my gratitude journal. And I just slowly process. And then throughout the day, like, I really focused on, most people have to work. So you can do things such as like what you wear every day, picking fabrics that are soft, that feel good to me, wearing the perfume, not holding it because it's until a special day. I would put on the $300 or $400 perfume on a random Tuesday afternoon just because. And doing things that made me feel good. One other thing that I love to do is when I do my makeup, I look at that almost as a in practice meditation, because you have a mind of what you want to look like. And then you are actively working on making that a reality in the moment. So by the end of it, you are pouring into you. You look wonderful. And it's just a beautiful experience. And so doing those things helped me to switch out of being so hyper masculine. So when I do have to do things that are more in that area, I don't feel so depleted. But I also really heavily focused on the integration of the masculine and the feminine. I think in this day and age, if you get on social media, there's always these kind of the masculine, feminine wars of what women should be. And I feel like many lose the site of what should be, and that is the integrated piece. We need both masculine and feminine, and that's also for guys as well. You need both sides because you need the structure in order to house the feminine. And so being able to have both of those, appreciating both of them is really the sweet spot of being able to really be embodied in your feminine.
Wow, I really love how you walked us through just like what a daily routine would be is like for you because that's so important. It's just like the perfect definition of truly nourishing yourself from the inside out because even though you're taking care of yourself from the outside by doing your skincare, taking time for gratitude journal, you're also adding mindfulness in there and you're being intentional, and that's nourishing yourself on the inside and outside. And I really love that because I worked at the salon for like 4 or 5 years, and that's all I looked at was the outside, the hair, the skin, the nails, and I was completely neglecting the inside. I was like, it's fine, I'll drink another cup of coffee. Oh, it's fine, I'll do something else. Oh, I'll eat this and I'll be fine. I'll take this vitamin. No, but it's not. If you're not being intentional about what you want and how you want to look and feel, then the outside is not going to reflect how you're treating yourself on the inside. So I love how you walked us through that.
Yes, no, it's an integration process. I have in my, oh gosh, probably last 5 to 7 years, I was really hyper focused on this whole feminine journey. And I got to engage with some very beautiful women of all colors, shapes, and sizes, just beautiful. But when I got to actually talk to them on a one-on-one basis, I was a bit disturbed because I'm like, that their thoughts and their way that their energy just doesn't feel hyper feminine. And that's when it clicked to me that you can outwardly look like the most feminine being of all. You can look like a true, real life modern goddess. But internally, there can be a completely different picture. And if you don't integrate the intention with the emotion, then you are very much, you basically will spend a lot of money, spend a lot of time doing all the things, but never really feel like you've embodied anything because you haven't. It's, you can do a lot of work, but if you don't have the intention, the focus, the gratitude for where you are and what you want to become, it just makes it very hollow.
Absolutely. For somebody who is in in the phase in their life where they're trying to transition from their masculine phase and be more open to the femininity and their soft side, what are the first three things that you would recommend them to start doing today to help jumpstart them?
So the first thing is I would highly, highly, highly and encourage them to sit with themselves and really reflect on who they are at this present moment. I'm really big when I talk about my soft pivot is that you need to honor who you are in this current moment and show reverence to that version of yourself because that version got you here. So that's your body, that's your mind, that's everything possible. From there, really think about what have you been hiding? What have you not felt the safest in being? And for some, it could be that, hey, being sexy is not something my culture, my environment allows me to be, but that's what I want to be. Or I want to be more light. I want to be more frilly. I want to be more fairy like, if that's your thing. And really take ownership of that and own it versus being scared of it. Um, that can help you to then understand where to put your energy and your time into and help you to understand what things that you need to release in order to move on. And I would say the last piece is just honestly giving yourself grace and mercy to be your full self. It is going to be scary when you first start showing up, like you mentioned earlier. When you start putting boundaries up, people are like, wait, what are you doing? I don't like that. Go back to the old version. no, reset, nope, go back, old version. And it's going to be uncomfortable, but give yourself grace and enough space to continue showing up as your full self, and be okay that you may lose people along the way, and look at that as a gift, because maybe by you being you, you might spark something in someone else that's watching or someone else that you're engaging with to say, I've noticed something different about you. I kind of like it. It's uncomfortable for me, but it makes me want to go do that for myself. And that's why I look at the feminine. We are nurturers. We nourish everything we are. Whatever we touch, we nourish if we have nourished ourselves. And so by doing those things will help you to really begin to embark on the journey. I actually want to put a heavy emphasis that it's a journey. You might get to a point where maybe you dress a certain way and you've now changed the wardrobe. Okay, great. That's level one, maybe. And then you'll start getting into some of the more how you engage with people, what boundaries you set, what boundaries that you set for yourselves, like actual standards for yourself. Like those things come as you gain more muscle in being in your feminine energy and being comfortable with being seen in that version.
That's so beautiful. I love that. I love how you explain that. One of the biggest topics that I've noticed is sensitivity. Do you feel like sensitivity is a good thing or a bad thing, and why?
It is only negative if it is not controlled. So sometimes we can be hypersensitive to things, and then that means that any little thing could make us off balance. But sensitivity is important because it helps us to understand the shifts of the environment and know how to navigate things. I think sensitivity, I think about, especially in my culture, there is kind of this notion of being hard. And being hard as a woman is to be cold. But I've always looked at it that in a very not in the most productive way, because if you're so icy, then you aren't able to actually enjoy the world. You're not really getting to enjoy all the fruits of life. And I think of sometimes we go so left in a way. So sometimes people become numb. And I've always made this example in a variety of places. If your hand is numb and I put it on the stove and I have the stove, it's like the stove is hot. You won't feel that it's hot, but when you look down, you'll see that you have maybe 2 to 3 degree burns on your hand, but you never felt it. That can happen often in our way of being hyper masculine. We are so numb that we don't know and notice that, hey, we've lost a leg, a foot, finger along the way, because we're so disjointed and so insensitive to our feelings. But then if we go in the other direction where we're hypersensitive, we're not able to hear feedback, we're not able to hear critiques, we're not able to buckle down and do the things that we want to do because we're so sensitive to things where people are scared to talk to you. And so being in a grounded manner, so somewhere in the between the two of hyper to insensitive, is the key.
That's actually a really great way to explain it if it's controlled, because if our emotions are out of control or we're completely so sensitive that we don't know how to control it, then that can be a negative thing. Like I've definitely been there in the past before where the old version of myself would be so sensitive to everything, but I didn't know how to control my emotions. I would just be like, ah, all the time. And that's when it's not very positive or helping anybody. But if you can learn to feel your emotions and understand that it's okay to have them because we're humans, we're not robots. But if we can fully express them and understand it's okay to feel like this, but because it's a part of who I am and it's a part of the process, but it's not okay to stay here and just weep in it and wallow in it. You know what I mean? So I think that's a wonderful way to explain that. Thank you.
Yes. And I will say, when it comes to how we feel in this particular era, I think there is such a hyper drive to hurry up and move past something. And
Yeah.
you, as the feminine, I think one of the biggest things that we need to do is allow ourselves the time to process. So if you need to cry, cry. That is actually like emotion. I look at when we have feelings, if we don't latch onto them and just allow them to go. So it could be crying, it could be I need to go to Chicago and be at the scream party and scream it out. Go to one of these houses where you can like break a wall or something to release that anger. Um, do it, because it's just like a cloud in the sky. It will float by, but we oftentimes hold emotions in, and that just locks us down into having this emotion, and we become so like, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm angry. You haven't allowed yourself to process it, so it's just kind of sitting in limbo until you address it. But allowing that to just kind of flow through you, it just makes for such an honorable experience.
Absolutely. It's something that I've learned on like a way of like phrasing emotions is that I feel X, Y, and Z, but it doesn't define me. Because if like, I think I am affirmations are so powerful. Like, if you want to rewire your mindset to a more optimistic mindset, you can say, I am beautiful, I am happy, I am successful. But when you take those I ams and you start saying, I am sad or I am worried, then that's what you're speaking about yourself, even though that's not true. So something that I've learned is saying, I feel sad, but it doesn't define you. What's your take on that?
It is extreme because sometimes we become overly identified with the feeling. So it's like, I'm depressed. No, I'm experiencing the feelings of depression, but
Yeah.
I am a depressed person, because then it's how you look at yourself. So if I call myself, I'm depressed or I'm sad, how do you treat a sad person? How do you look at a sad person? Versus if you see someone who says, I am juicy, I am optimistic, I'm creative, there's a different way that you will engage with that person. It's almost like if they're a sad person, you may more than likely try to avoid them. Well, what if that person is you and you're calling yourself, "Hey, hi, I'm sad. That's my name." Well, you're going to try to avoid you as much as possible. But if you say, "I am joyful," you're more than likely going to be like, "Okay, what is this person like? Who is this? I kind of want to engage with them more. I want to talk to them." And as you're talking to yourself, now you're engaging with yourself. Now you're picking up habits that actually add to you, which then adds to your happiness, your joy, your juiciness. And now there is just an expectation in how you engage with the world, because you're going to be like, well, I'm a happy person. So you doing that doesn't align with my identity of me. And therefore you kind of put those boundaries up. So like, I think that is extremely important.
Yeah, that's so true. It's so funny because I was just reflecting on this the other day. So uh, I was just like reflecting on like how much I've like learned about emotional intelligence and how much I've been able to apply it versus like old me, because like old me used to be so emotionally unstable and I'd be like didn't know anything about emotional intelligence. And the other day my neighbor was giving her dog away for adoption because she's moving and she can't take her dog. And my partner and I were like, okay, like let's go take him for a walk. And I didn't know this dog was already adopted. I thought it was like a trial to see if we can adopt him. So I was like, oh, like this is so great and blah, blah, blah. I was like, can we take him for a walk tomorrow? And then my partner was like, like the dog is already adopted. I just honestly want to take him for a walk to say goodbye. And I was like, I felt so heartbroken in that moment, but then I had to really apply like okay, like I feel upset that I fell in love with this dog and like we can't take him home because he already has a new home, but it's not defining who I am on a day-to-day basis. And it really is. It's you get tested in those little moments. Like when you say you want something, it doesn't come to you on a gold platter. It comes to you in the form of challenges and tests. And I definitely feel like that was one of them. So I completely hear you on acknowledging how you feel, but not letting it define you. We say we want something, and for example, emotional stability, you want to be more optimistic. You're going to be faced with trials and challenges to see if you're really serious about what you mean. So, I mean, I definitely feel like that dog was just a test on my emotions. And, it's we always say, instead of saying like, why me? Why am I going through this? Why is this challenge happening? Just start being, one of the things that's also helped is just being thankful. Like, did you ask for more patience? Are you being tested with more patience? Did you ask for more emotional stability? Is that what you're being tested with? So I always go back to like the gratitude piece, exactly like what you were saying earlier is how you do your gratitude journaling, because that's also changed my life in so many beautiful ways.
Yes. It's one of the most not natural, but I am one of those weird people who will say, I'm grateful for the sad times, the hard
Yeah.
times, because that to me is where you get the gold that you can then take into happier moments. It's like if you go to the gym, you don't get to do one workout, you don't get to do one leg day and then come out with an amazing leg. It takes work and some uncomfortableness for a bit, and then you start to notice that, oh, I can lift more, I can push more. And that's the same way with the uncomfortableness. I think we get scared about the discomfort. And so we go into that, like, why me? Why do I have to go through this? But I will say 100 out of 100 times, every piece of rejection or unhappy moment, I'm able to pull it out at a later date. And I've oftentimes have been able to use that to help someone else. And so I can look back at that, even my really not great growing up phase. There's so much gold landed in that because it gave me empathy. It gave me insight. I'm able to see things in a way that a lot of people can't. And then I'm able to articulate that to them. And they're like, wait, I haven't had that experience, or I had it, but that's a different view. I would have never thought of it that way. And that's how you become, that's where your value comes into play so much. But I also understand, and I'm very conscious of that, the world that we live in is extremely stressful. So sometimes it's like, okay, here's yet another thing that I have to manage, which is like going through those uncomfortable situations. So it's very important. So I'm always a big about pouring into yourself. It might be small, but I've noticed that when I don't pour into myself, I don't do my gratitude. I'm just, checking my phone as soon as I wake up. I'm getting up and I'm rushing and I'm in just a hyper flux of energy that I'm super drained. But if I get up, I drink some water, I do my skincare, I think about at least three things I'm really, really happy about, go get my coffee, and then look at the emails that might be insane, but they're there. I would feel so much more equipped to handle them, and it makes sure that your energy level is at a high level. So, for example, let's say that you had a day where you were just rushed, you didn't pour into yourself, and something happens, like say a flat tire. And if you're already batting at 50%, that flat tire is probably going to put you to 30, 40, maybe knock you at a zero or negative percent. But if you've poured into yourself, you're feeling good and that happens. Yes, I don't want to deal with a flat tire, but okay, let me call AAA. Let me maybe you can fix your own tire or whatever it is, you can feel much more comfortable. So maybe you went from having 100% when you started your day, if you've poured into yourself, maybe you're now down to 70. Okay. So you're still at a nice range to get through the rest of your day and then come back home and replenish yourself for the next day.
That's true, though. It's really finding, like, when you pour into yourself and you make it like a daily ritual, then you start to find the good in everything. Like, even if it's the smallest bit of good, it's better than nothing. Like, I remember, now that you got me on the topic of cars, I remember one time when I was living in Chicago, I worked maybe 10, 12 minutes away from where I lived. And I drove from my home to work, and I parked my car where I usually did every day. And then something happened and my like the battery went out. I'm like, I'm not a car person, so I apologize for my terms, but I think like the battery went out. And then I was like, you know what? It's fine. I'm thankful I got here safe, and I'm thankful I was able to park in a safe place. And then I was able to get that figured out after work. So I wasn't late for work, even though I had to figure that out after. I was thankful I got there safe, and I parked the car the next and got there safely. You know, I didn't leave it in the middle of the road because that would have been totally different. So it's just really finding the good in every situation, even if it's so minor.
Yes, it takes, when you've poured into yourself consistently, problems that can come up can either be a major like day ruiner, or it could just be a mildly inconvenient thing. Like, I was going to Ulta, I was going to Sephora. This is inconvenient versus my day is ruined and it's just everything sucks. It's a different mindset, and it takes a mindset of seeing yourself as deserving to pour into you. Because the women that I've worked with in past, that is always something I've seen as a theme, is that they don't feel worthy to pour into themselves. They pour into everybody else with the most reverence. But when it comes to them, either they don't have anything left, or they just kind of think, oh, well, I'll be okay. I'll just get over it. I'll just move on. And over years of doing that, it just causes such a ripple effect in your life, your energy, and just your overall view of how you can navigate the world.
Absolutely, that's so true. Christian, this has been so wonderful to have you on today. And before we wrap things up, I have one final question. What does it mean for you to be nourished inside out?
It means for me to be able to live in the most optimized way possible. So every as facet of my life is blossoming, it's well watered. It is not just the physical. So yes, it's the being able to get up and move your body in a way that is wonderful, and eating wonderful foods and getting good sleep and all the beauty that comes with being a woman, in my opinion. But it also means having psychological safety, be it with yourself or with partner, with friends, your work, and just making sure that you are getting to govern your life in a way that not only makes you happy, but allows you to nourish everything that you touch.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. And can you please tell us, where can people stay in touch with you and where can they support you?
Yes, you can find me on christiansimone.com. I just launched a course called The Soft Pivot. You can find out all of that type of information on my website, and I would love to engage. And I've just loved my time being here with you.
Thank you for joining us. I'll have everything linked down in the show notes below so people can stay in touch.
Wonderful.